this is my channel, The Fancy Hat Lady Reads. I am wearing one of my fancy booktube hats, and today I am drinking some fancy booktube tea because it has come to my attention that it has been nearly 2 years since I last did a book and tea pairings video. This is a video idea that I originally got from my friend Maya at Maya Reads. I've done this twice before, once in 2019 and once in 2021. And since then, I've read a lot of books and I've drunk a lot of tea, and I have 5 new teas that I've been enjoying recently, and 5 books that I would like to recommend, one for each of those teas. I have some tea preferences, but I am not, I think, quite yet all the way to being a full-grown tea snob. We'll see if I ever get there, or if I ever admit to it. First, I like my tea to contain actual tea leaves, and enough of them that I can taste those tea leaves. I'm not so much into herbal tea, nor am I particularly into the sort of flavored blends where the other ingredients are so prominent that they overwhelm the tea. However, I do really enjoy flavored teas, and 3 of the 5 here are flavored. I especially enjoy fruity and floral flavors. I will tell you where I got each of the teas in this video and provide website links where available. So the first tea I am going to recommend is this African chai from the Perennial tea room in Seattle. I bought a small amount of this as an impulse purchase in a recent order, and oh, was I glad that I did. This is the tea that I am drinking right now as I film this video. For the record, I have no idea if chai is prepared like this anywhere in Africa. If you know, please tell me. Or if they're just selling this as African chai because it's made with tea leaves from Africa. I believe it's made with Kenyan black tea. But this also has some flavors in it that are not typical of Indian chai. Specifically, I think rose petals and licorice root are mentioned in the tea description. And this is just like an intense experience, and I love it. And that I should have been able to predict that, because if you know me from my prior tea videos, one of my favorite flavors in tea is rose petal and rose scent. So it is no surprise that adding roses to chai would make me like it more. And so the book I would like to pair with this African chai is A Master of Djinn by P. Djèlí Clark. This takes place in Egypt, which is in Africa, but that is far from the only reason I have chosen this book to pair with this tea. Just like the African chai, P. Djèlí Clark's Dead Djinn universe takes familiar genre elements and adds new ingredients to make something very different. This is a steampunk alternate history where the technological steampunk revolution was brought on by the introduction of magic to our world. We have a lot of paranormal beings from different mythologies. We have a mystery investigation plotline, and we have a little bit of romance. The other tea I have here that I got in that same order from Perennial Tea Room is this black currant tea. Now there's a bit of a story here with this tea and why I ordered it, and why I ordered so much of it even though I'd never had it before. Last summer, I had been really enjoying a blackberry flavored black tea that came from a different tea shop, although I highly suspect now that it was the same blackberry tea that Perennial Tea Room also had listed on their website, because when my tea shop ran out of it, so did they. Now that blackberry tea was made not with blackberry fruit as the flavoring, but blackberry leaves. And after I got over that like initial shock of it not being what I thought I was getting myself into, I started really, really loving it because it had that like brambly feel of childhood summer, you know, rummaging around in the local woods and getting pricked by blackberry vines. And so with this summer coming on, I was a little bit distressed to find that that tea was no longer available. However, this one is also made with blackberry leaves. Fun fact, in case you're unaware, black currant is actually a very uncommon ingredient to find in the United States because it was illegal to grow it here for like most of the 20th century, and during that time it just fell out of culinary use. So even though it's now legal to grow black currant again in the United States, the demand for it apparently hasn't recovered because people don't really know that it exists. So it intrigues me that the three ingredients in this black currant tea are tea and blackberry leaves and flavoring. That flavoring might actually have black currant in it, but I have no way of knowing. This could be a total fake. It also doesn't quite scratch that summer blackberry vibe itch that I was hoping for from the blackberry tea. It is similar enough though that I don't regret buying this much of it. However, I am kind of curious. Before I run out of this, I might buy an actual black currant tea and do like a taste test comparison. But because this tea is a bit of a sneaky deception, I have chosen to pair it with a book that also hinges on sneaky deception, and that is The Thief by Megan Whalen Turner. And not just this book, the whole series, the Queen's Thief series, does heavily utilize plot twists and deception. This first book was originally published in 1996, and the series was only recently fully completed. I still have to read the last book. This is a very political fantasy series with some elements of storytelling and mythology woven in, and I would consider the plot of this first book to be sort of heist novel-esque. The next tea I want to recommend is this Hojicha from Sullivan Street Tea and Spice Company here in New York. Hojicha is a Japanese green tea that is roasted, and so it has a very distinct flavor and color that's different from other green teas. I think there are a couple different ways to make Hojicha. I think it's sometimes made with tea that is like all leaves, and sometimes it is made with tea that is a mix of like leaves and twigs of the tea plant. This particular Hojicha is the type that is a mix of leaves and twigs. I don't know how well the camera will be able to see this, but it's worth looking at. It looks like this. I've read that Hojicha is lower caffeine than normal green tea, and therefore it is a good evening tea. I certainly hope that's the case because I've been drinking a lot of this at night. And there is just something about this like vivid, roasty smell of this tea and its flavor that makes me think sci-fi. And I do not know why. Maybe it's kind of because the color is a little like rust and I think of like old spaceships. I don't know. But the book that I'm gonna pair with this tea is Ancillary Justice by Leckie, which is the first book in the Imperial Ratch trilogy. This is kind of obvious because this is a sci-fi universe that like genuinely has a lot of tea in it. So if I keep making tea and book pairing videos, I was gonna have to pick this one eventually for some tea. There is more tea going on in the second book, but I liked the first book better. The protagonist of this series, Breck, basically used to be the AI of a spaceship, but is no longer, so I've got my rusty spaceship vibe, I've got my world with tea plantations in it vibe. Although like there was a lot of time spent on a tea plantation in the second book, Ancillary Sword, and we never learned anything about how that tea is processed for consumption. So like, I don't know if the tea in this world, if they're drinking green tea, black tea, oolong, what. But it's definitely a world with like rich tea tradition. And the Hojicha also comes out of a rich tea tradition. So this is my third book and tea pairing, the Hojicha and Ancillary Justice. The next tea I have on this list, also from Sullivan Street, is this White Monkey. Despite its name, White Monkey is not a white tea. It is a green tea. It is apparently so named because the leaves are supposed to look like the hairy paws of white monkeys. At least that's what the internet tells me, and the internet is never wrong, right? This is a very like fresh, mellow smelling and tasting tea. It does well with multiple re-steeps, and the flavor is grassy to me in a way that strongly reminds me of silver needle white tea, even though, yes, the white monkey is a green tea. I know, I'm getting confusing here. It might have to do with the fact that the leaves are a little hairy on both teas. That might be what I'm tasting, but I don't really know. There is like a similar flavor profile to me though. So my choice of a book to pair this tea with is another book that actually features a lot of tea, and that's A Magic Steeped in Poison by Judy. This is the first book in a YA fantasy duology called The Book of Tea. I haven't yet read the second book, but this follows a girl who has learned a type of magic that is practiced by steeping and serving tea from her mother. And a large portion of the plot of book one revolves around this tea magic competition at court. This is a Chinese-inspired fantasy world. This is a Chinese tea. And the reason I paired these two books specifically is because this tea tastes to me similar-ish to the Silver Needle. I have recommended a Silver Needle white tea before in my last one of these videos 2 years ago. I paired it with The Empress of Salt and Fortune by Nevo. So I'm not going to recommend that tea again, but there is a portion of this book where like Silver Needle tea specifically is important to the plot. And it's a fantasy world, but there was a choice made to use some real world tea. And so I wasn't going to recommend the Silver Needle again to go with this book, but I'm gonna recommend you the White Monkey instead, which to me tastes similar, but that you might be able to get at a slightly lower price point. I have been doing a really good job here of recommending mostly books that like actually have a lot of tea in them. I think this is a sign I need to do these videos more often, because if I do them more often, I will be able to dig like a little bit deeper into my reservoirs of books that I've read to maybe recommend some slightly less obvious picks. But the last one I'm going to recommend is also going to be a tea that I'm pairing with a book that has actual tea in it. This is the Berries White Tea from Spices and Teas, that's spelled T-E-A-S-E. They are another New York-based brand that has a like stall selling their tea in the Grand Central Market, and they also do pop-ups at the holiday markets here in the city. But like the previous two tea shops mentioned in this video, you can buy their teas online. For me, flavored white teas can be a little bit hit and miss because the flavor of the white tea is so delicate. I want to taste the flavor, but I also don't want it to overwhelm the flavor of the tea, and I think this does this really well. This is mostly visibly white tea leaves in this blend. There are little bits of like dried red berry floating around in here, but I think they're mostly like cosmetic in the tea blend. I think most of the flavor is coming from other like flavorings that have been added, but that means you're getting a lot of actual tea leaves per serving in your tea. I love how this tea both has that very sweet fruity berry flavor, but also retains all of those lovely mellow qualities of the white tea. And so for a book that has a lot of tea in it that is both sweet and mellow, I'm recommending A Psalm for the Wild Built by Becky Chambers. This is the first book in the Monk and Robot duology, and I haven't actually read the second book yet, which is terrible, bad for me. This is set on a planet that has progressed out of its industrial era when the robots all walked out on society and disappeared into the woods. And reading about the society built in the wake of this event in this book is like very, very warm and mellow and comforting, like this tea. But our protagonist Dex is struggling to find happiness in life despite having left their prior profession behind to become a tea monk and being very successful at it. A lot of this book is like chill self-discovery in the woods with a robot, talking about why we feel like we need to have a purpose in life. And I think this Berries White Tea would be really good to drink while having self-discovery in the woods with a robot. Just saying. Like, this is very much a tea to calm the senses and clear the mind and bring happiness. So there you have it. Those were 5 teas I've been enjoying lately and 5 books that I recommend to go with them. I should do these book and tea videos more often. I should do them like once a year instead of once every 2 years. Anyhow, I'd love to hear from you in the comments if you've read these books or drunk any teas like these that you'd like to talk about. Anyhow, I hope you're having a very nice day. That is all. Bye for now.